Hello guys, in this video we are going to implement the new input system with ORK Framework. I said sort of because if you actually want to fully implement it, you need to have the source code of ORK Framework in order to make the necessary changes to completely decouple the old Unity system, input system that the ORK framework has embedded. So, but for now, let's do some kind of hybrid implementation. So let's start by going into the package manager, and from here go to the Unity registry and select input system. Try to check always the latest version and click install. Let's wait for it to do this job. You will need to restart the editor. So here, do you want to enable backend or so? We'll restart the editor and we'll disable the old input Unity Engine input APIs. Click on No. Now that the installation is done, close the package manager. Let's go back to the edit project settings, and you will see that in the player section we can scroll down and check that input manager all still selected. So let's switch to both and click apply, and then the editor will restart. Okay, so we're back into Unity editor. We have both input systems, so let's close the project settings and let's check in the ORK editor framework. The inputs that we need to enable. If we go into base control, input keys, these are the default inputs that comes with the standalone ORK framework tutorial resources. So we have horizontal, vertical, accept, cancel, battle menu, attack, pause, and game menu, let's say. So these are the inputs that we need to create in the new input system. So let's do that now. Okay, so let's get the editor out of the way. I will be creating this input under my how to resources folder to keep all together. What I'm going to do though is to create a new folder and call it settings, and under the settings folder I click on create. All the way down, input actions, and let's create player input actions. The first thing I want to do now is to check generate C# class, apply, and then edit asset. So from here we can create a new action maps. Let's call it gameplay. If I spell it correctly. From there I can take the first one and click and rename it to horizontal. Add a new one and call it vertical. Remember the ones that we saw in the ORK Framework editor. Create a new action for accept, a new action for cancel, okay, the one didn't save it, cancel, a new action for battle menu, a new action for attack, one more for pause, and the last one menu. I mean, at this point you can rename it whatever you prefer, but it's just to be consistent what ORK Framework has, to be easy to map easily later on. Alright, so for the horizontal, this one needs to be instead of button, we need to change it to value, control type any, and for the bindings let's create a new one. So this is going to be rename. Well, it doesn't let me, so let's delete and create a new binding. So the first one is going to be a 1D axis. For this one, let's call it arrows key, or let's for the arrows. So for the negative, we are going to use the left arrow key. So let's click on listen and select left arrow key. Now for the positive, let's do the same thing in the path, listen, light arrow key. Now let's create another binding. This again is going to be a 1D axis type of binding. So let's call it AD for keywords A and D. For the negative, we click on listen and click on the A key. For the positive, we click on listen and select the keyword in the path. Now let's do the vertical one. Change the action type to value and the control type to any. Remove the existing binding and let's add a new one. Let's call it again arrows. So for the negative, it's going to be listen, the down key. The positive is going to be the up arrow key. Let's add a new binding, not that one, sorry, delete. And this is going to be WS. So for the negative, we click on listen and select the S keyword. For the positive, we select the W keyboard, and we have horizontal, vertical. Now for the accept key, we leave it as button, and in the binding, let me see if allow me to rename it later. So we select listen, the enter key. Yeah, it changes. Perfect. So for the cancel, it will be also a button type of action, and in the binding we click and select the right control, the right control key. For the battle menu, we leave it as button action, and in the binding we click on the path, then listen, and in this case is the left control key. The attack action is going to be button as well, and it will be mapped to the spacebar. The pause keyboard, the pause button will be mapped to the P key. And lastly, the menu is going to be bound to the escape key. Listen. Okay, we need to select it by looking after escape key. There we go. So let's check again in autosave. So it will generate the C# classes that we need to create our custom script. So this is from the player input action settings. At this point we can close this tab, and let's go to the scripts folder to create our custom script to map all these actions. Okay, so right click and create a new C# script, and let's call it custom input actions. And open the script in Visual Studio. The first thing we need here is to add a using statement for the Unity Engine input system, so we have access to the new input system classes. We need the I like to use the seal keyword here because I don't want anybody else to try to create a new class out of this custom input action. This will forbid this class to be created as a new instance. So the next step, I will be copying over the script I already made just to be faster. So we create a variable to store a reference to the player input actions that we made before. Then we are going to need several flag type of variable just to check if we are using the horizontal, vertical, the accept button is clicked, etc. Then in the awake method, we create a new instance of the player input actions, and we tell Unity to don't destroy this script. It's a mono behavior, so of course it needs to be placed in a game object in the scene. And if you have several scenes, the better way is just to don't destroy it, so this script will still be listening to whatever inputs you get from the input system. The next part is on enable. So let's on enable, and what we are going to do here is to register all the actions to the proper events. So remember that we created a player input, so let's go back to the settings. We have these gameplay action maps, and inside these action maps we have all these actions. This is what we see in the script here. So we have the reference to the player input actions, then we have the action maps and its corresponding actions. So what we are registering here is whenever the horizontal key is clicked, let's say. For each of the actions we mapped the event. The same way, when we disable the script, we need to unregister all these events. And lastly, what we need to do is to create public functions that will be called by ORK Framework. So again, if we go back to the editor, we have horizontal, vertical, so we need to create functions, custom functions, that this section here will be called upon. So let's go back to the script, and I will copy paste all the functions I already have. So when the horizontal function is called, it will return whatever we have set in the horizontal float variable here, and so on and so forth for the other actions. As you might guess, the next step will be, well, letting Unity compile this script and map this custom script in the ORK Framework editor. So let's do that now. Okay, so let's open the ORK Framework editor and go to Base, Control, Input Keys, and then in the None we can leave it as it is, no problem. But the horizontal we need to change. Instead of key code, let's do a custom. Then it will ask the class name. So remember that one, we call it custom input actions. So let's copy that one, and inside this class we have a custom axis function, not a button. Remember, horizontal and vertical are axes, not buttons. So this one will be horizontal. I am a save freak, so let's save. Now we can go to the vertical and change it again to custom, the class name, custom input actions, and the custom axis function will be vertical. Now for the accept, this is going to be a button, custom button function. So again, let's change it to custom. The class name will be custom input actions, and the function name, custom button function, is going to be accept button. Let's do the same for the cancel. So it's going to be custom, the class name, and this one is going to be cancel button. For the battle menu, click on custom origin, the class name, and then the function button will be battle menu button. The attack is going to be also a function button. So custom for the origin, the class name again, custom input actions, and the custom button function will be attack button. Same for the pause menu. Pause button. And lastly, the menu, in-game menu. So custom, class name, custom input actions. The function name will be menu button. So let's save. And of course, remember, we are using the tutorial ORK Framework tutorial resources. So in the control maps, not control maps, game controls, we are still using the out-of-the-box player controls. So player control type is button, and for the camera control is mouse. So this part here, we are not using the new input system yet. For this one, we need actually to change the source code of ORK Framework. Unless you wanted, of course, to use your custom player controls and camera controls, which is the advisable thing to do. Alright, so let's close ORK editor. We have already mapped the actions bindings. So let's search for in the tutorial resources, we have the scenes, the main menu scene. And here we can create a new empty game object, and let's call it custom input actions, and let's assign our script. Let me just zero out the transforms. So remember, this object won't be destroyed and will persist during the whole game. That will allow us to listen to any changes made in the input. So let's save the main menu scene. If we remember, we have a custom setup here because we are using this character selector screen as well. So if we open that one, you will see that in the canvas, here in the event system, we are using the old event system. So at this stage, we could replace with input the new input module, and this is one of the things that we need to change in the ORK Framework source code, because it will create the event system using the standalone input module, not the new one. So let's give it a try now. Let's go back to the tutorial resources, open up the main menu, and let's click play. So right now it's listening to the new input system. Enter. and here we are using the old input system. And from the movement we are using the new input system. And you can see here in the Don't Destroy on Load, we have our custom input actions which are listening to the input. Thank you for watching, and in the next video I could, if you want it, I can extend this functionality to the source code, of course, of ORK Framework to have a full functionality of the new input system. Thank you again.